thank you. I appreciate it. I'm good, right? How are you? Yeah, all the rules. So did Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Minnesota State University Mankato. On behalf of President Davenport and Dean Brenda Flannery of the College of Business, let me welcome you to this special program this afternoon. We're particularly excited about what will be going on here this afternoon, not only because it's an opportunity for you to see my living room, but more importantly for us to talk a little bit about civility. Before we step into the main program, I want to share with you a little bit what the university is doing right now related to civility. You likely have noticed many of the different civility campaign posters across the campus. A couple years ago, the university had some really good dialogue regarding about how we as the campus want to put forth our values, how we want to put forth what we believe in. And that dialogue continued for a couple years, and this year is when it really manifested itself. So we decided we want to put something in motion, a program, a campaign, if you will, to really reinforce what we feel about civil discourse, how we want to emulate and model for our students, for our faculty, or for our staff, how we're going to communicate and interact with each other. So a product of what you're going to see here is this part of the campaign here today, and we thank the College of Business for their opportunity to connect with them on this as well. But the best part about this campaign is it's everybody's campaign. In addition to the many table tents, posters, there's some online training. There are various programs throughout the year in which you have an opportunity to learn more about civility and practice it with yourselves and with other people, of course with yourself. But I encourage you to do that. It is an interactive campaign. Every one of those posters asks you to think about a particular interaction you may have with another human and how you want to address that, how you want to enter into your, and how you want to be interacted with, and how you want to have other people understand how you are related to civility. So thank you very much for what you're doing already related to civility. Thank you for coming out here this afternoon. With that, I'd like to introduce Dean Brenda Flannery.
Vice President Jones. Well, thank you so much for being here. This is wonderful, and we are indeed excited about this installment of the Big Idea lecture. And we have a really special guest with us today, Nate Garvis, and we're going to do it a little differently today. We're going to have a fireside chat. I hope you can see the fire that's been brought in. Before we get started, though, I want to thank a few people. I want to thank some of our co-sponsors of the Big Idea event. We have the Small Business Development Center here on campus, and the Small Business Development Center is co-sponsoring this event along with Sodexo. So really appreciate that partnership. We also wouldn't be able to do this without a lot of hard work by some people, especially Elizabeth Johnson, our intern in the College of Business. She takes care of our communication and marketing work, and all the staff and faculty in the College of Business. So, let me share with you a little bit about Nate Garvis. Nate began his journey with Target Corporation about 18 years ago. He was the Vice President for Government Affairs and Senior Public Affairs Officer. Since then, his work has centered around leading, designing, and collaborating for positive civic outcomes. His company, Studio E, is an exciting executive development program that focuses on fostering entrepreneurial thinking. And Nate was responsible for producing the country's first ever National Civic Summit, which brought together thought leaders and influencers through a unique mix of technology and in-person events. Nate is a member of a number of academic think tanks, business, and nonprofit boards throughout the country, and he presently serves as social innovator in residence at the Social Innovation Lab at Babson College. Really, Babson is known as the #1 entrepreneurship program in the country. He has a book out, Naked Civics. He has a TED lecture that's fun to watch. He's recently been on CNN. He's been on Minnesota Public Radio. Please help me welcoming Nate Garvis. Yeah, very cozy. So, where do you want to begin?
Oh, where do we begin?
Do you want to begin with Naked Civics? Do you want to begin with Studio E? Where would you like to begin?
Let's start with Naked Civics. How about that?
Sounds great.
Because I want to convince all of you in the business school that you are the future of public policy. And I bet not many people have ever told you that. One of the reasons why I've done this work, one of the reasons why I wrote the book, is that we've created what I call an angertainment industry. That's what politics has turned into. St. Paul and Washington, D.C., Sacramento, Madison, you name it. These capitals have become places of professionally ticked off people, not just the politicians. It's literally the entire environment around it. It's actually the environment that we all create as well. You spend $6 billion and you can get a lot of people to think in terms of red and blue. But this book is really about civic outcomes. We live civic outcomes. We don't live political inputs, or most of us don't, at least. We all live for the idea of being a good community together. And in order to do that, we need to think differently. We need to gather differently. We need to design differently. I'm really excited about being with you and what you're trying to do in this crowd, because our ability to create social innovation into the culture that we live in, our ability to create products and services that we use every day and have common good outcomes designed right into it, has real world impact right now. And we need it. We need it in this world, and moving left and right might be fun for some folks, but moving forward is the world I want to raise my daughters in.
So are you basically proposing that students, and especially business students, can contribute to positive civic outcomes?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, just as an easy example, we can argue about cap and trade legislation all we want. If you look at Washington, D.C., we'll probably argue about it forever. But the more environmental stewardship that we're designing into products and services that we use every day, the more benefit we not only bring to the planet, but the more benefit we bring to the economy as well. And both are really important. And we've been told this line that they're in opposition. You can either help the economy or you can help the environment. I reject it. I think we can integrate those quite well, not only through the skills that you guys will bring as designers of businesses, but also what you guys do in terms of influencing the marketplace as consumers.
Did you ever think like that when you were at Target? I mean, was that part of some of the things that you thought about as the company was deciding maybe what products to add?
Yeah, and first of all, the answer is most definitely at Target. Target was a great experience for me, and I still have a great working relationship with that company. It's a great company, and it was really a laboratory for me to try out some of this thinking. And interestingly enough, and tragically so, it started off with a really bad story, and it had nothing to do with products. A number of years ago, there was a really horrific murder in western Minnesota, and a town called Moose Lake. There was a repeatedly convicted sex offender named Donald Blum, and he abducted, raped, and murdered an 18-year-old girl. Her name was Katie Poyer. And I was having cocktails tonight with the Commissioner of Public Safety, a guy named Charlie Weaver. He's a good friend, and we got to talking about this crime that was in the news. And I just said to Charlie, I don't get it. This guy was in and out of the system. How did we not know where he was? How did this happen? And he described to me basically a non-system. He described to me 1,100 plus criminal justice jurisdictions that couldn't talk to each other. And I said to him, Target knows where every pair of socks are in the chain, and you don't know where your felons are. And we created something that night, and it was really through design. It was about applying what we were doing every day as a matter of business practice and leading the world in it. I mean, what Target does in inventory management is top of class, and aiming that design somewhere else. And that was the first time that I started thinking of the enormity of positive power, something like Target could be. And what my opportunity was in designing civic outcome, in addition to what I was doing at the Capitol.
I'm going to pull you back just a little bit to when you were in college. And I think
I'll try.
If I could, what did you want to do when you were in college? I mean, were you thinking about these things when you were in college?
I think in some ways I was, but the honest answer, because I had no idea. I was young and dumb.
So your major was?
My major was history.
Okay,
I'm a high school dropout. I started college when I was young, but not because I was some brainiac. I just had a lot of friends going to college, and it was like, well, I'm going to go to college too.
So you finished high school?
Actually, I dropped out.
You dropped out, but you could enroll in college?
I found a factor. Don't try this at home. No, but I knew I was a liberal artist, so studying history was an interest to me. I inherited a lot of this civic perspective. My mother especially, her family, were all civically involved. They weren't holding elected office, but they were the folks who showed up and made things happen. So I was raised in that culture. So that was taking me out back there. In college, I was, young and dumb, as I said. I was a starving artist, emphasis on the starving part. And I ended up graduating when I was young and took a few years off, and I went to law school. But I went to law school with the express condition I wouldn't practice law. I just was interested in the education. And it was a great education. But it's there that I actually started to work in the state legislature out in Oregon. And that's where I kind of got exposed to that way of looking at public policy. It was later on that I actually was able to look beyond that as the only means of creating public policy.
So what did you do after the state legislature in Oregon?
I moved back to Minnesota, and through hook and crook, I ended up getting a job with the Minnesota Retail Merchants Association at the Capitol. I was a lobbyist for them. And Dayton Hudson, then the parent of Target, is the largest member of that association. And one day, almost the entire staff left to pursue other opportunities. And they kicked an executive upstairs before retirement. And I went to talk to him because he was our largest member. And had a great conversation with him. And at the end of it, I had the temerity to say, I think you need to hire me. And he looked at me and he said, I think I need to hire you. So that's how I ended up at Dayton Hudson, which became Target.
So sometimes it's good to ask for the job.
Yeah, and I didn't even know walking in that I was looking for a job. In fact, I wasn't looking for a job. You and I were talking earlier in the day about this, that in business, we're kind of trained to be problem solvers. But I think the future of business is actually to be a problem finder, as to actually go to people and say, so what is it that you want to accomplish? Let's not even get into the approach yet, but what is it that you need to accomplish? Then you kick in as a designer. And a lot of that's in naked civics as well. There's there are 8 things that I postulate that we all want in a community. We can have great arguments as to how we want to get there, but we all agree on these 8 things like safety and health and productivity. I mean, these are all things that we want. If we can agree on those outcomes, we can disagree a lot better on how we get there, which is one of the reasons why I really applaud the fact that you're doing so much focus on civility. It's a necessary ingredient, but being a problem finder out there is really what I was doing at Dave Hudson that day. I was hearing this executive talk about what he wanted to do and where his needs were, and I, again, had the hubris to say, I think you should hire me. I can help you.
So, kind of coming back to this, the point about, especially naked civics, that, well, let me just ask you quickly, why naked, why civics, why put those 2 words together as the title of your book?
If you use the word civics, you have to put the word naked in front of it to get everyone's attention. I was really going after the 18-year-old boy market. They're so disappointed. So the civics part of it was important to me, and God, I can't tell you how many people said, do not use that word. But I really wanted to take that word back. Civics is a super cool word. We've been trained to think it's really boring. That was the class we fell asleep in school. But civics is the big picture. We've been trained to think politics, but civics is really what we lead and live into every day. And you don't have to do it professionally, you do it casually every day. So for me, I really wanted to take that word back, dust it off, and give it new life. The word naked was important because it really is about stripping the conversation to its bare elements. I was interested in stripping civics down to a place of agreement. We've been thrown for 24 years into environments of just purposeful, angry adversarialism. It's not, anger is a great initial emotion. It can be a really great motivating emotion, but boy, is it a lousy, steady diet. And I thought in order to get back to that place where we all agreed, I had to strip away the politics. I had to strip away our tools. I had to strip away our institutional way of looking at civics, strip it naked, right down to 8 things that we agree on. And if we can agree on those, we can rebuild, redesign in ways that will have a lot more possibilities moving forward.
Well, the thing that I really like about our civility campaign, civics is the basis of the word civility, is that it's really about how do we choose to interact with each other every day. That being civil means a choice of, rather than being angry or being disrespectful to who you are as a person. And I really mean this from how students interact with students, how faculty interact with students, how students interact with faculty, and so on, that we are deciding to act civil to each other. We're deciding to treat each other as wonderful people.
It's a mindset. And it's a practice. It's not a checklist. It's a culture that you practice over and over again. And I know you and I are in agreement with this point too, is that it's not important because it's a nice to do, it's something grandma taught you that was important and all that. There's true utility in civility. There's true utility in how you will learn from others, how you can make your own thinking more powerful, how you can enroll other people behind your ideas is so much more powerful. It's so much easier. There's so many more opportunities put in front of you when you walk into things with the mindset of civility and an open mind.
And I think, there's research that shows that companies that have this positive organizational climate actually are more productive. So if you're in an environment that feels really negative and feels really antagonistic and not supportive, it's really hard to get your work done.
Yeah.
It's really hard to be productive.
I would also add, it's really hard to get compensated. What I mean by that is that there's 3 ways that we get compensated. We oftentimes revert to the obvious one, money. But 2 of the most important ways that all of you will ever be compensated are emotional compensation and intellectual compensation. If you can feed your head and your heart, you'll make enough money. Chasing money, there's this guy named Bill Gates, and you're always going to be bummed out. But it's so hard to get those first two kind of compensations if you're in an environment that just punishes you. And you guys are all too smart to want to hang out with places like that.
So you seem to be such an optimist. In your book, you really talk a lot about that we're really imperfect as a species. We make a lot of mistakes, and you almost start your conversation with the premise that we're not perfect.
Yeah.
We're imperfect, but that we're really capable of so much. So where does your optimism come from?
Part of it is maybe the way I'm wired. I am optimistic, but I'm also a student of history. And I know that empirically speaking, this is a fact, you have a better chance of living to old age without a violent death, in better health, on more places on the planet than ever before. Now that's not the story that you hear on CNN and Fox, but in actuality, this is the best time ever to be alive for more people. We are imperfect, but we have a lot of capacity. And we, part of that optimism comes from being easy on ourselves. Don't expect perfection. Better is perfect in this world. Part of it actually is how I frame those 8 things though. Things like public safety. Well, the 8 things are, so we all want to live in communities where there's safety, where more people than not have good health, where there's places to be innovative and creative, where you can pass on knowledge and wisdom. We want to live in places where you can be compensated because you're productive. We want to live in places that have good infrastructure, not just built but preserved. We all want to live in communities that are moral and just. Forget about the tools. That's the outcome we want. Those aren't problems to be solved. We're taught that those are problems to be solved, but what they really are is that they're dilemmas. They're dilemmas that constantly need to be managed. We'll never live in a completely safe world. That doesn't mean we can't live in a safer world. And by changing the framework from problem fixing to dilemma management, it frees up a lot of space to be kind.
So it doesn't feel overwhelming, like I can never really fix that problem.
Right.
And I have a 17-year-old son, and sometimes he'll say that, the world is, why even work on that?
Right.
It's not, going to ever be solved.
Right.
And so you're kind of switching away from that mindset.
It's about the journey, it's not about the destination. Our job is to journey together and to journey towards making our lives better together. That's my philosophy. Like it or not, that's what I believe, is that we aren't made to live alone, and we do better in a good neighborhood. No one does well in a bad neighborhood. And that's kind of the underlying premise of all of this. And that if we look at it as a dilemma, it will give us not only the emotional energy to keep going, but it actually changes your tactics as well. So much of what's going on in politics, for instance, is letting the perfect be the enemy of the good enough. So we never try anything. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the reasons why I love working with you around ideas around entrepreneurship. That entrepreneurship as a mindset is just about trying stuff. Try stuff to learn. It may not succeed, but if the worst thing that happened was you learned something, then you have succeeded. Mm-hmm. Even a failure turns out to be a success if you learn something.
Who do you admire? Who is a living person?
A living person.
Living person. The living person that you most admire.
Boy, there's so many. This is going to sound so trite. I hate this. Okay, I really admire my 2 daughters, but for different reasons. I have 2 daughters, and one is 14 and one is about to turn 11. And the reason why I admire them, and why it's so important to me in answering this question to you, is that one is like Miss Perseverance. She will just motor through anything. I don't have that in me. I don't know where she got it. And the other one has this sunny outlook that makes me look like a pessimist. there's a great word out there. It's called being paranoid. It's the antonym of paranoid. My youngest daughter thinks that life is a grand scheme on her behalf. We're all scheming for me. But they both had this really powerful mindset that I really do admire. And why I answer this way is that this book, this conversation, is really about a handoff to them. I really do reject this narrative that we're pushing on our kids right now. The world is, what you were just describing with your son, is that the world has just gone to hell in a handbasket and it's someone else's fault and good luck. I don't believe it, and I really admire them because they are wired differently for different reasons. But I do. I really deeply admire my kids.
And the flip side of that is, as you kind of scan the world, what is kind of that trait in other people that you most deplore? What do you really think is a very limiting trait in others?
Narrow-mindedness. It'd be easy to go toward anger or something like that, but again, I think anger can be a really useful emotion at times. I can't think of a time when narrow-mindedness advanced anything. So I think your ability to be a student, a lifelong student, and a student of everything is really critical these days. So people who purposefully work against that frustrate me.
Another flip side, when you want to be inspired, what kind of music do you use to kind of channel that creativity and that motivation? Because I know you're a lover of music.
And I am. I've got a lot of it. I'm a musician myself. There's no one musician or group, but when I want to defrag my mind, when I want to quiet my mind, I like listening to, you're going to say this and that. I like listening to Goldberg Variations, Bach, which is beautiful. And I also like listening to Pink Floyd. I know, they're so related. But on the other hand, I love Bob Dylan, but I can't listen to Bob Dylan and contemplate because I'm listening to Bob Dylan, listen to the lyrics. But John Coltrane is another one. So I listen to a lot of different music, and depending on what I need to have happen. So when I'm on thought journeys and stuff like that, I listen to Floyd or a lot of jazz. And when I want to sit down to work, I'll listen to maybe something classical.
So you get to work with the classical rather than unwind.
Yeah, for some reason it has that impact on me. I don't know why. We've played everything in the studio, and it's fun to watch how people react to music. I mean, our environments have huge impacts on how we think and act. Our physical environments, our personal and emotional environments. But music for me also has a huge environmental impact. I like playing around with that in the studio, but I definitely engineer it into my thinking. Yeah.
What kind of music? What do I want to put on depending on what I want to get done?
You're right. For instance, at the studio, in the morning, when we get started, we've got rock and music going on. We want the blood flowing. I literally want to see people's bodies moving. So I will put on music that is impossible not to tap your toe to.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. It could be, I just did something with Janelle Monáe, for instance. She's Highwire, I think is the name of this. Could be wrong on that, but that's a really good example of just an infectious beat or something like that. But when we put people into conversation, we want to tone it down. I may play everything from Bach to, there's a super cool chill band called Macrosoft, which is just wild kind of spacey music. But you can literally see how people kind of sink into the mood and start connecting with each other, as opposed to something that's more hard and driving. And you start feeling your own body, so you start concentrating on yourself rather than the other.
One of the purposes of this Big Ideas speaker series is to bring in people who have great ideas so that they can help inspire your own big ideas. Because I really feel as though each one of us has ideas, big ideas within us, and The trick is really how to allow yourself to release that idea.
Yeah.
I think you talk in your book about not being a spectator, but being an actor. Can you share a little bit about your insights into how to move out of kind of that spectator and why are we in that spectator state?
Yeah.
And how do we move from being a spectator to an actor?
Well, we can't be an actor in everything. So the one thing is to figure out where you want to be an actor. Because we are going to be spectators. Because you can't participate in everything. And you don't care about everything. Where you want to act is behind things that you really care about. So discovering your desire is a really important place to start an action from. Because if it's an important action, if it's important to you, and no one else has done it before, chances are is that it's not going to be easy. That doesn't mean it can't be joyful. It's just not going to be easy. And one way to sustain yourself through that is to make sure that your idea comes from a place of desire. But then it really is about, not the root of the act, right? And too often, we put barriers in front of ourselves. We put barriers in front of whether it's like, why even bother? To someone else has already done that, or I'm not good enough. And a lot of that starts actually from an interior conversation that we have with ourselves. Everyone has this interior narrator. It's the person who's talking to you right now. That you're listening to me, there's someone saying, oh, he's full of crap, or my chin itches, or I wonder what I'm going to do tonight, or something like that. We all have that interior conversation going on. It's powerful, and it's powerfully good, and it's powerfully bad. And that oftentimes that interior conversation we like to refer to as the assassin of opportunity. It's the one who talks you out of trying things. So turn yourself into actor, start with desire. Then talk to your interior narrator. Convince your interior narrator why it's important to move forward. And then as you and I have been discussing for a while now, take a small action. Try it. Learn something.
Small.
Yeah, don't eat the whole enchilada. Take a nip at it. Get enough of a taste to know whether that desire was real. Take enough of that taste to put that idea in front of someone else so they can react to it as well and help them. So they can help you shape your idea and iterate it forward. And that's kind of like when we talk about the art of entrepreneurial thinking is the art of iteration. So often we've been trained to think of business, for instance, as plan and then do. And that's not wrong. It's just not complete. Plan and do works really well in a known environment. And there's a lot of moments now. But increasingly, there's a ton of people that is very unknown. It's very ambiguous. It's very volatile. It's full of change. Plan and do does not work very effectively in that environment. Act, learn, and build are the skills that we need.
So if you need to convince yourself to act on something, how do you take the first step? Like you have multiple companies that you started.
Yep.
What were some of the things that you did to make that first incremental step?
The first thing was actually talking to myself. Is this a cool idea? Would I want to be part of this success? Would my daughters be proud of me if I tried something like this? I know that, again, that might sound really trite, but I actually do ask myself questions like that. And then once I get past myself, then I've got my posse. I've got my trusted friends out there who I like to run ideas.
But don't do it by yourself.
No, don't do it by yourself. At least for myself, I'm not good enough to come up with a golden idea. I come up with lots of ideas. I come up with pretty good ideas that are shaped into really good ideas by others. So talking this out has been my practice. Sometimes I'll even draw it. Here's the idea, and I'll draw it up. So what do you think? And something that we've been talking about throughout the day, and I mentioned a little bit earlier as well, is this whole idea of of need finding as opposed to problem solving. So when I look at an opportunity, I'm actually looking for the white space. It's like good art. Good art leaves a lot of white space. So I'm looking for an outcome, but what's missing? What's not in the marketplace right now? And that's what I try and focus on.
I'm going to ask you a few questions that have to do with really kind of this focus on our university's big ideas, real world thinking, motto. So what is your motto? Do you have a motto?
No, but I'd say probably like build better.
Build better.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that would be as close to a motto as I have.
Does that go back to your focus on design?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really do embrace the whole idea of design. I mean, design, growing up, design was a vertical, right? We've got a problem, we'll put it in the hands of the creative types. I think that design has gone horizontal now. We all are designers.
Creators.
We're all creators, and we're all creative types. Even the most linear thinking of you out there actually have it in you to be a creative. It's oftentimes, you know, you've heard me say this at Studio E, that it's a place where we solve low sodium food. You know, we've so engineered that out of ourselves that we add it back in. So that whole idea of design is, I guess, you know, a big underlying part of that motto is that we're all designers. And that's kind of the whole idea behind the toolbox analogy in the book, is that we're good at a lot of things as humans, and the one thing that we're absolutely awful at is not tinkering. We're born tinkerers. And so design, build better.
Awesome. I want to ask you two more questions, and then we're going to open up the questions to the audience, so all of you can have a chance to ask Nate something. So here's the last two questions, and it really has to do with big ideas. First one is, what is your advice about how to be a big thinker? What would be your advice to the audience about if you want to think big?
Be audacious. When you start having that conversation with yourself, be audacious. Think super big. It will become smaller as it comes into reality, but if you start small, it will end up tiny. Start huge. Another way to think about that is that quantity does breed quality. We do a lot of exercises in our studio around ideation. And if I were to pick up this bottle and I say, you know, write everything you can think of doing with this bottle, most people will write 10 really killer ideas. And then they'll pause. And it's like, I can't come up with a good idea. And they stop. What you really want to do is you want to start writing really bad ideas. Really bad ideas. What we've found is that if you get through that period, you'll start coming up with good ideas again. Lots of good ideas. And then you'll peter out. And you'll start writing really bad ideas. Super bad ideas. Ideas you would never share with your wife ideas. And then you keep on coming up. But out of that process, you can come up with really amazing thinking. It's a practice. So one way to have a big idea is to have lots of ideas.
Don't expect it to be that one perfect idea.
No, I mean, maybe there's, you know, maybe some of us are savants and you can come up with stuff like that, but most of us aren't. Most of us really need to create practices. But I really do honestly believe that we all have it within us. It is there. We're born with it. It's really about creating the tools around you. And those tools, again, are mindsets and practices and environments. But you all have it within you.
And I think really, so many of our students are, many of them think of themselves as entrepreneurs. And I think a lot of the future economy is really going to be about many of you starting the next businesses that we have. And that'll come from trusting those ideas that you have. And perhaps one of the even more important things that we do is supporting each other's ideas.
Yeah.
So my last question to you is going to be, what is your advice about how to be a supporter of other people's big ideas?
Oh, what a beautiful question. I really do. I love that question because our default generally is not to be in that space. You know, we start questioning way too fast. One way to be a great supporter is to be a great listener. I've been married for 21 years, and I can't tell you how many times I have blown it, where my wife comes home and she's, you know, bitching and moaning about this and that, and I try and fix her problem. Poor little stupid guy. She just wants to express, and my job is to listen. So when someone comes to you with an idea, really hold back the commentary. Let them express. Let them even allow some comfortable pregnant pauses in there. Let them express everything. And from there, have the mindset of not challenging it, but actually how do you add to it? Again,
So rather than being that maybe devil's advocate?
there'll be time for that.
So
But
the
right now,
initial point.
The initial point is yes and, not yes but.
So don't talk them out of it. Don't be a devil's advocate.
No, unless they're about to create a capital crime or something. If it's an idea and they've really honored you by coming to you with an idea, honor them back. It's such a cool space to be in with someone. It takes a lot of courage to share an idea and be honored by that. Be honored by the fact that someone wanted to share a dream with you. And don't take that space and crush it. There will be times later on to be that devil's advocate. And that's important work. But your question in my mind really goes to kind of this trajectory moment. Trajectory, right? You get it wrong an inch or two here, it's 50 miles out there. Ideas rarely evolve perfectly. They need addition, they need percolation time. And you can do that with someone by being a good listener and practice the positive aspects of yes and. Yes, that's a cool idea, and it could be made even better if we did this. I'll say the corollary to that, though, as the producer of the idea, is to also have the courage to allow others to put their fingerprints on your idea. It's really rare that you can come up with something that is so perfect that it was birthed perfectly. You know,
I feel like you have to protect it and not share that idea with someone else.
Yeah, earlier on in my career at Target, when I was young and dumb and full of way too much ego, I saw a lot of what I thought were great ideas die. And I had a bolt out of bed moment one night. I really did. I had this huge epiphany. It was like, wow, I'm spending a lot of negative energy protecting my ideas. And what I decided that night is that I was going to give my ideas away, and I would travel with them. And I went from someone who was protecting a very small part of Target to someone who could actually influence all of Target, because I wasn't interested in control. I was interested in influence. And one way I gained influence is that I allowed people to own my ideas. I gifted away my ideas. I allowed them to make my good idea a great idea. And that strategy hasn't failed me since.
Now's your opportunity. So I would open up questions to the audience. And Elizabeth, are we just going to, do we need a mic? Or I think we're going to just try it with, I'm a little blinded, but you can help me, Elizabeth. Do we have any questions for Nate? Yes.
Okay, my question is, where do you go on your thought journeys, and why do you take them, and what do you hope the end result will be?
Oh, that's a cool question.
And can I go?
Where do I go on my thought journeys, and why? That's the question? I do it, some of it is I do it recreationally. I do. I like to let my mind wander. And I create spaces for that. Whether it's working out with music or going to a museum or whatever, I try and put myself into places that are purposefully nonlinear. I'm not trying to get something out of this, and I literally let my brain just go wherever it wants. Bad thoughts, good thoughts, whatnot. Generally, what I'm trying to do is to allow my mind to connect things. Things I've learned, people I've met, desires that I have, and I'm looking for connections that I can't force, I need to discover. So when I don't try is when it happens. And I've gotten into the practice of regularly creating that space where I'm not trying to think.
Another question, Nate? Don? Don? Yeah.
You talked about the stop trying to control and try to influence someone. That's great advice. Tell me more about how you do that. That's difficult.
It is difficult. I won't say it's easy because we're not only are we living in a culture that seems to value control, or I guess part of that is that we oftentimes work in environments that reward that control as well, right? How much authority I have. How does it, well, I'll tell you why it's so important, and then we can get a little bit into how it works. Why I think it's so important is that every organization, business, nonprofit, you name it, every organization has emerged as a duality right now. There's what's on paper. It's hierarchical. It's full of command and control and asserting authority from on top down below. But every organization is also a mirror of society at large right now. It's a wired together community, and networks don't respect authority. They actually can enroll themselves if they're influenced to do so. So that's the utility behind it. How you do it, there's a lot of facets to it, but I think some really important concepts in influence is clarity of not only of what you are desiring to influence others into, but actually describing their self-interest. Why would you want to come along on my journey? I can't force you to do it, so how do I create, I can't use a stick on you, so how do I describe the carrot? Why would I want you to do it? So describing self-interest is a big part of it. I also have a technique that I call the 80% story. This goes a little bit to your question too. When I sell an idea, I don't sell 100% of the idea. I leave a lot of space for you to fill in, because I want you to own this idea as well. So inviting people to own your idea with you is a great way for them to put fingerprints on it, and something that you put fingerprints on, you want to own. You want to have partial ownership on. Other things that really matter with influence, I've found, is describing why you need someone. Why did I pick you? I picked you because you think this way, and I think this way, or you have these relationships. But basically, the old Tom Cruise line, you complete me. Honoring someone by saying, I need you to collaborate with me because you bring things to the party that I don't bring. That's a great way of influencing people as well. And then the final thing, there's so many, but the final thing I'll talk about here is that describing that future state of how we both will benefit and what we can do with that. So what's the payoff when we collaborate? I lied. One more thing in terms of influencing others, and it goes to collaboration. It's an agreement that you and I aren't going to get it right the first time, and we'll have each other's back. We're going to iterate our way into that collaboration. Too often I work with clients in business settings where there isn't a lot of collaboration. There isn't enough collaboration. There isn't enough influence going on. There's a lot of assertion of power, but not enough influence. And one of the markers that I've pulled out of those environments is that oftentimes those environments are very metrically driven cultures. You and I can't move until we can prove ROI. And if you and I can't prove ROI, it's too dangerous to move together. I won't influence you. And if you and I have the environment where we can have each other's back, then I can describe those other things. Then I can go into, here's 80% of the story, will you fill in this other 20%? How do I honor you by telling you how important you are to our idea? Those are all techniques that I use in influence.
You know, the culture really celebrates kind of that individual leader. You know, I mean, on the scale of individualism to collectivism.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, in the United States, we are on the
Rugged.
we are on the very top of the individualistic
Yeah.
spectrum.
Yeah, the flip side of that, though, is that I also think that mindset of individual accomplishment also translates into individual failure. And we don't take a lot of risks because we think the failure is all ours. If the glory is all mine, then the failure is all mine. Whereas if it's more distributed, then, and again, I don't like using the word failure, you don't know that, is that the glory is all of ours, learning is all of ours as well. And it becomes a culture that allows you to move forward faster.
Other questions?
In the red?
I'm not seeing who this is.
What advice would you give a young entrepreneur heading into a field that's dominated mainly by like an older generation?
Kick ass. Honestly, you're think of it as your opportunity. I know it sounds really intimidating. You're about to create something and you've got a $50 billion competitor in front of you. They're slower than you. They're not as nimble. You know, they're not as creative as you can be. And they've got a lot of weight. They have a lot of money, but they may not have the speed that you have. They may not even have the relationships that you have. In the prior economy, I might have given you different advice as to like go run and hide and try something new. But I think large organizations right now, especially if it's an innovative idea that you have behind your entrepreneurial energies, large organizations are having a lot of trouble with innovation right now. They really are. They talk it, they worship it, but they don't know how to create cultures around it. And partly because of what we were just discussing. They don't have collaborative cultures. No one ever got promoted in a large organization by saying, I don't know, let me go find out. And yet you've got that freedom. So I would say be nimble, be fast, and be courageous. Don't let their size intimidate you. Make a success, they'll buy you later on.
Other questions for Nate?
I guess my question is with technology evolving and changing how the business runs and whatnot. And how do you see the future business or how we do business or the ethics of it changing as far as the face-to-face relationship and networking and whatnot?
Oh boy, that's an interesting question. How do I see business changing because of technology and if you'll allow me to interpret this way, the lack of face-to-face that's going on with technology right now?
Yeah, interpersonal relationship.
That's interesting. The honest answer is, I don't know, but here's what I think about it. That the technology we're using, I'll start this way. My philosophy is that we tend to weaponize technology first. We screwed up. The first person who captured fire did not invite you over for dinner. They threw it in your face to prevent you from eating their dinner. Right? We tend to weaponize things. And in terms of communications technology right now, we have abused a lot of it. That's part of where our bad politics has come from, is that part of the nature of our technology right now is it's very anonymous. And it allows us to intellectually segregate each other. I would say in the world of business, we can overemphasize the rapidity and the connectivity of technology to our own detriment. I think one of the things though that's happening because of that is that people are starting to assign a premium to face-to-face now. We're discovering what we've lost, and we want to gain it back, because one of the things I feel absolutely passionate about in business right now is that business is in the business of delivering value. It always has been. But what is different now is that value really is a construct of two different things. It's being responsive to people's needs, and it's also being relevant to people's needs. Businesses, as a leader, you have control of how you respond. You actually don't have control over the relevancy. You can influence it, but I don't make myself relevant. You decide whether I'm relevant. The more face-to-face, the more contextualizing of our relationship, the better chance I have of assigning that premium to my business. So I think that whereas we've had a lot of fun becoming anonymous and quick with communications technology, that will stay. I don't see that going away, but I do see an emergence of an appreciation for trust and a relationship and a sustainability of a relationship. No different than I see the emergence of things like civility as a topic. 10 years ago, we would have probably never have gathered under that banner, but we have seen what we have become, so we are redesigning back to where we want to be. I think the same thing will happen in business, that the ability to create the relevance of your offering will become a premium, because what you do, I don't care what the business is, chances are what you do is going to be a commodity. How others feel about what you're doing is where the premium will lie, and that's going to take a lot more face-to-face conversation. And what I would argue, less transactional conversations and more interactional conversations, things that we've just talked about. Allowing the customer to put their fingerprints on the product, allowing the customer to be the R&D, the designer, can create more premium for you in the long run.
Any other questions? I think we have time maybe for two more. So another question for Nate?
Right down here.
Are you motivated by anger? And if yes, are you angry because of yourself, of the competition, other people, or maybe it's
Am I motivated by anger? I'm not. Again, I really respect anger. It's just a really bad emotion for me. I'm not comfortable there. I'm a natural diffuser. I like integrating people. I like integrating thinking as well. So it's not a natural place for me. But as I said, I'm not knocking it. A lot of good things have started because of anger, but I would also argue that very few things have been sustained through anger. I'll give you a business example if you'd like, to just kind of create the corollary. The first Toyota Prius did not sell well. It was a super cool hybrid engine, and it was in a normal, pretty ugly economy car body. The second Prius looked different. It actually tapped into some anger. The second Prius was a rolling FU to every Suburban. It drove by. It was a statement. I drive a hybrid. I'm better, right? Automobile Magazine's Car of the Year right now is a $100,000 electric sedan called the Tesla S. It's not angry. It's sexy. It's aspirational. Green, which really started in 1970, if you will, with Earth Day, started off as a very angry mood. It has transformed into everyday luxury. I think that's a really cool thing. Probably upsetting to the people who really attach themselves to the anger, but if you look at outcome, anger won't get you there. If you look at the birth of organic food and attach yourself to the anger of hate corporate parties and all that kind of stuff, you probably don't like the fact that Walmart and Target are the largest purveyor of organic food in the country right now. But if you care about pulling pesticides out of the planet, that's a really cool thing. And it's not done through anger. It's done by actually engineering anchor out of it.
One more question, I think then we have some raffle items, I think.
Yep,
that we-
there's one more question.
One more question, yes.
Nate, at this stage of your career in life, what have you discovered about yourself? And what's yet for you to accomplish?
Wow. What I discovered at this stage of my career is that I could create stuff. I was a corporate officer for many, many years, and in 3 years I launched 3 businesses and a book. So I learned that I can actually create stuff from whole cloth, and it's really fun. And I'm probably unemployable now. So I learned that. I have so much more to accomplish. I couldn't, you know, I want to create more. I want more out of my studio. I want to connect more people. I want to create more possibilities for people to be the best version of themselves. I really get off on that. So I hope to spend a good long time creating that capacity for folks to not only find the best part of themselves, but to connect with the best part of one another too. I think it's so cool when you see it happen. Yeah, thanks for the question.
It's a great way to end. So, I think we have something that we'd like to give you. Nate, we have a poster of the lecture.
Thank you.
Advertisement. So I think now's a good time for us all to thank Nate for being here and for we sat by the fire. So we want to also have you leave with an MSU blanket, a purple blanket.
Okay.
All right, we have another blanket. Have a name over there.
All right. I have John Carlson. Mass media. John Carlson, because there might be more than one John Carlson. Congratulations.
Okay, we have a College of Business umbrella.
It's going to rain hard. Umbrella goes to Wesley Otto. Congratulations.
Okay, and then we have 3 signed copies of Nate's book, Naked Civics.
This is the movie prize. The first one goes to Dustin King. Nice. The second one goes to Desiree Dan. And the third one goes to Christy Sonnet.
And if anyone is